morning. This is Grandma and Great Grandma Marill Smith Lewis. I'm standing in front of some of the museum things that we have that Grandpa Lewis had. Today we're in the Pease home in what we call the museum, which Clyde so generously built for Grandpa Lewis. And today is Thursday, August the 14th, my oldest son's birthday, Corwin. And we're here. Joseph is here with his wife Leslie and children, and he wanted us to have a few memories of Grandpa. And Leslie, are you in on this now for a moment?
Yeah, so we're excited to hear
Thank you.
about these different things in the museum.
You might like to see mostly Grandpa above all things. After church and priesthood and family, he loved scouting. This is an Eagle Scout statue, which he had. I don't believe it was given to him, but he had it made to commemorate. And he did receive the Silver Beaver, which is up here, and that was in February of 1963. And I just noticed this morning, this is the pin that he received from the Catalina, not Catalina, but the one in Phoenix, the Grand Canyon Council, for his 60 years in scouting. He actually had more years than that. He had 70 years. And other memorabilia about scouting. And these are his early things, like his first, some of his books that he used. And just memorabilia about scouting mostly. This one rock is, we had some visitors in our home who had been acquainted with the astronaut, and it came from, they said it came from the moon. This is, this shelf here is some of Abajo, where we lived. Grandpa lived there about 30 years. I lived there 24 and a half years. And while we were there, Grandpa worked for the Phelps Dodge Corporation, and then we owned the Desert Dairy, which later became the Malin Lewis Distributing Company. And also Grandpa had the Lewis Motors, which was a Chevrolet dealership. And this is one of the awards he got, and that's one of the frames back there. This is a piece of copper back here. I don't know if you can see it very well. This is just a vase with desert scenes. And another piece of unoxidized copper. This one basically is more of Arizona. This one is a picture of a quilt. Maybe I could get it out.
Can I help you?
Can you? This quilt was made by Goldie Richmond, and I have the quilt. It's in the other room, but a lady from the University of Arizona who was doing archaeological work and also getting histories by way of quilts from women took this picture. And Goldie Richmond won the grand prize at the state fair for this quilt. It has a history of the Papago Indians. They're not called Papago anymore. They're called Tohono O'odham. So anyway, maybe you could put that back easier than I can. And these are, this might be interesting. This is a beaded belt that Grandpa had for years, beaded by the Indians. And they used to do that work more than they do now, so I wanted to bring attention to it. This is also a brick that we got the year that we all went to Nauvoo. Maybe you remember that. In 2004, was it? For our reunion. Up here is just one shelf for Uncle Selim, who passed away in 1995, July the 1st, 1995. And when he was in high school, he was the lead role in Oliver. And a couple of friends did this. This is kind of heavy, but it's his picture as Oliver on this. And then up there's a candle with it, but it's hardly, you can hardly recognize it. And these are kind of cute. One day Grandpa took all the boys, because he was going to take them hunting. He bought all of them some hunting boots down at the company store, and he took Selwyn with him, who was about 3 years old at the time. And Selwyn decided he needed shoes too, even though he wasn't going on the trip. So Grandpa bought him some. And he had shorties on that day. When he came home with shorties on and boots, he looked just like he had canary legs. He was so skinny. But he passed this pair of shoes down to Delon, and then to each of the twins. And DeRay said she was the last to wear them, and they even wore a hole in them. So I had them bronzed. So to remember all those, we called the last four Selwyn, Delon, DeRay, Durrell. Stainer says it was an exclusive club called the Four Little Kids. That's what they always were the four little kids. This is some of the things from our mission in Mexico, which was 94 and 95. And we came home because Selwyn was very ill. Excuse me. This is one of you probably know these things better than I do, since you went to Veracruz, but I've forgotten what they're around. Aztec, Mayan calendar.
It's
And,
Aztec.
Okay, and this is from one of the pyramids out there, a couple of the pyramids. This picture of we worked in the temple, the Mexico City temple, and at that time it was the only temple in Mexico. There are now 12 temples there in just a little over 10, 15 years. And Grandpa went to a little store, bought the picture, and had a man put a clock on it for me for my birthday while we were down there, because we didn't have a clock. And some of these this is very fragile, but it's Mexican and Indian pottery, and you probably can't see all the cracks in it, but it's been put back together from those cracks. And I don't remember where we got it, but and maybe Grandpa had it when we were married. And a friend of mine gave me this basket from the Papago Indians. I said, here I live near the Papagos. I have nothing to remember that by. And so one year she gave those to me. And I think Grandpa already had these things. Even this, they're so very fragile. These are Mexican pottery. And I'm not sure, but it seems like I bought them when we went to Sonoita one time. That's pretty much. We did get to go to Hawaii when Mariel's oldest son was married in Hawaii to Ola. We went to the wedding at the temple over there, and it was our 50th wedding anniversary. And she had worked at the Polynesian Center, and so we all had our pictures taken, and I don't know if you can see that very well. These are all things, the pieces of copper, the state of Arizona with copper. These were gifts from Durrell, who went to Argentina. Some of these are gifts from Stainer, who went to Taiwan. And we had a friend who helped build a church in Abajo, and then they were called on a mission to help build churches in Samoa and Tahiti and Tonga. And he, in his spare time, he did a lot of these kind of woodworking And I've given some away, but this is a part of a salad bowl set. And these tiki cloth, these cloths. This is a gun cabinet made by your father, Joseph, in high school. But he never has been able to take it home, so I just keep it here. But the guns some of them are the guns that Grandpa bought for the boys when they went hunting. He thought to be a good father, he had to also take his boys hunting. He found out they were all too tender. They couldn't stand to kill anything, especially your dad. He says, those deers has a big brown eyes. He says I can't kill them. And anyway, the only thing they ever got was about the size of a large jackrabbit. So they decided they didn't know how to do that. But we do have the guns. And some of these guns are old ones from great-grandpa Walter Beers Lewis. And some of this ammunition and some of these things are from his memorabilia. So,
all right. Well, thank you, Grandma.
you're welcome.